It's been months, I think, since I made a video showing the progress of my jointer. And the reason for that is I stopped working on it, actually. And I made a video talking about my reasons. And if you want to hear more about that, there's a link to that in the description. Basically what happened is I got a little bit burned out on it. And also I ran into a couple of problems that were frustrating me. I've since somewhat handled the problems and I've made a little bit more progress on it. So I'm going to start up again and hopefully now I can finish it. So the main frustration for me was the lack of flatness in these pieces of steel that I use for the top. So what I wound up doing was taking these off and flattening them out as much as I could by pounding on them basically with the rubber mallet and getting them into reasonable shape. And then I put them back on and I shimmed them up, where they were low or where they were higher to try to make it conform down to the table. And that seems to have put it where I think it's going to be okay. I really need to try this out and see how it cuts before I'll do anything else with, say, tweaking of that. So the other problem that I had was the infeed table was a little bit unstable. When I pushed on the front of it here, it would move down. Same if I pushed on the back of it. And originally I thought that was a result of having a smaller inclined plane. I thought that making the inclined plane longer, say the full length of this, would solve that. But I did try something in the meantime, and that was to add 2 strips of very thin wood on both sides of the edge of the ramp. And what that did was it concentrated the load down on the sides here so that when I tighten those knobs in the middle, it pulls the whole thing down tight and it concentrates the load on those edges where it's best supported. In a previous video, I showed the drawing that I made for this and I showed the lift and lower mechanism. I'm glad I took the time off because it actually made me think a little bit, or gave me time to think, and I was able to radically simplify that with this mechanism down here, which is just a simple 3/8 threaded rod that pushes the infeed table forwards and up the inclined plane, or pulls it back and goes down the inclined plane to make a deeper cut. And then after I have the adjustments made, I'll just reach in and tighten the locking knobs and it's ready for a cut. Also, to help me set things up, I added these simple cams here on both sides. And what they do is they allow me to set this table properly, and then I'll just take them off after I'm satisfied that it's as lined up as it needs to be, I guess you could say. It's looking very close now. I really don't have a good straight edge to use. What I've been using, actually, is the edge of a piece of Baltic birch plywood. And to be honest, for what I do, I don't think it needs to be that much straighter than that anyway. So, like I say, what I've got to do next is get the motor hooked up to power, obviously, to get it started. And I have a link belt here that I was using for something else that I'm no longer using that I'll be able to put on this. And then after that, after I do that first test cut, I've only got a couple of things left to do on this. The biggest of which is to build the fence. And I'm not certain whether I'm going to make the fence so that it tilts. I don't really think I'll need, or I'll ever have a situation where I'd need to tilt the fence to plane or to joint something on an angle. So I'll probably just make it at 90 degrees. I know I've got a lot more to do with this, but I thought I would fire it up and see how it actually cuts. To be perfectly honest, I already had this running, but the thing was going backwards. I had the motor wired backwards and I had to change that. So here we go again. I've just got a temporary cord tied in here, no switch. I'm going to be using the switch on my little power bar here to turn it on and off, and I'll plug it in and we will see how it cuts. Now, first thing I need to say about these knives is that they're not really that sharp. These came off my old planer, and that's where the cutter head came from. And I took that apart years ago after it broke. And these knives have been sitting around getting rusty So they're not at peak performance, but it does seem to be working okay. Now this is a piece of hard maple that I'm planing here, and it's just the edge. And I've got the depth of cut set very shallow just to try this out. I don't want to go overboard with it yet. I just want to see if it, cuts evenly. So that looks okay. What I'll do now is I'll switch to something wider. This is a maple 2x4 that's 3.5 inches wide. I don't know how accurately this is planing it, whether it's actually flat or square, and that's going to take a bit more work to dial that in. But onwards with the test, and I've got a wider piece here. This is a 2x10, and a 2x10 is actually 9.25 inches wide, and this is spruce. So we'll see how that goes. All right, not bad, a little bit slow. Probably could have increased the depth of cut a little bit more, but baby steps, because this machine is not fully set up yet. And looking at it, it looks flat, as in there's no twist, which is good. And sighting along the face, it looks fairly flat in line. I'll use my square here to see. And there's just a small amount of rocking here. I'm not at all happy with these steel tops for this, and I'm thinking that I'm better off to go out my shed and get the aluminum and replace these and see how much of a difference that makes, because there's just too much. There are too many problems with this that I can't fix in the amount of time it would take to go get that, put that on, use that. It's not like I'm going to be using this joiner, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll be using it maybe, 2 hours per month. So I think the aluminum will hold up just fine. But overall, I'm happy with how it's working. It's smooth, it's running smooth. There's no vibration. Everything feels good. The bearing on this side over here that I, lubricated because it seemed like it was dry is making a little bit of noise. And I guess I'll eventually get to the point where I have to replace it, but I'm going to let it go for now. I mean, I could get years out of this if I'm only running this thing 2 hours per month.